Hello, I'm a gritty reboot of Jason King, and today we're going to discuss Capricon's panel on the OSR and Grognards. Bit controversial. I couldn't find the panel still listed. Maybe I'm just being blind. Internet's been a bit flaky. But this panel on the OSR was posted on the OSR Reddit, and the text that was presented there was the following: that this person is going to be on this panel at Capricon 44, and the panel was titled and texted, "The Old School Gaming Renaissance and Its Bad Reputation. Where did that come from? Why is it important to address, and how do we do that? No, really, there are too many straight white older grognards making life difficult for everybody else. How do we deal with that besides tossing OSR games out?" Bit front-loaded, don't you think? A lot of assumptions there, a lot of hypocrisy there that frankly we could spend an hour picking over, but let's not. let's not feed this any more than it needs to be. Now, I'm going to go to my grave insisting that I am not really an OSR guy. I am neither a traditional gamer nor a story gamer. I fall somewhere in between, right? I'm not really an OSR guy. Didn't grow up with Dungeons and Dragons. Played a lot of other games first. That makes me a purple unicorn according to some people. But still. And I'm also on the far left, but the old school left. My leftism is rooted in class and wealth analysis and disparity, not identity politics, which is a whole rabbit hole down to far right politics as far as I'm concerned. So I'm coming at this as a kind of semi-outsider, I suppose. I know a lot of OSR people, less so the other way around, and the reason for that will become apparent as we go along. But I think it's important first to question the premise here. Does the OSR have a bad reputation? Yeah, a relatively small number of drama llamas on X/Twitter are not the real world, despite very much wanting to be. There are successful OSR companies and designers and auteurs that have little or no social media presence at all, and yet they're making a living or supplementing their living from doing this. So clearly, amongst whatever you might call its own community, it doesn't have a bad reputation. And in fact, it's successful enough that people are attempting and succeeding in aping its success. Things like Darky Dark and the Shadow Bunch and MCDM, cribbing from older editions and styles of play and so on, and making huge amounts of money. But a lot of OSR products can reliably make a reasonable amount of money due to network externalities and compatibility. There's also within the OSR a fair bit of entryism from the self-appointed fun police who want a nicer OSR, but those tend to be the annoying people who create a bad reputation by conjuring up some sort of crimes that the OSR is supposed to have engaged in. Sure, there are bad people in the OSR, but there are bad people in every hobby and every sector of every hobby. Many of the worst people involved in role-playing games at the moment are those people loudly proclaiming themselves to be progressive, tolerant, and inclusive, while not being any of those things. And there's the rub, I think. My hypothesis is that the OSR has a bad reputation precisely because, by and large, It is what the woke scolds want to claim that they are. It is progressive, tolerant, and inclusive in the way that all of gaming used to be. That is, progressive back when it actually meant progressive. You know, hippie permissiveness, Gen X resignation and not giving a shit. Tolerant in that it tolerates people with different and problematic viewpoints by prioritizing the game, the commonality that holds people together over external divisive things like politics, for example. There are exceptions, of course. There are people that are so bad that almost the entire sub-hobby casts them out. You know, people like Varg, inexcusable. But even some people will take issue with me on that. But by and large, that seems to be the source of these people's issue. The OSR doesn't police itself to the woke scold's satisfaction. It doesn't cast people out to the same extent. And I think that's because older gamers, Grognards, those who carry the torch for that, they also carry the collective trauma and the siege mentality of various moral panics, and are deeply suspicious of moral entrepreneurs and busybodies who seem very much like the bullies and the exploitative televangelist types of the past. They have a shared trauma and a kind of battle buddy closeness that millennials onwards don't really seem to share. I mean, look at the framing of the question. There are too many straight white older grognards. I mean, are there? And isn't sexuality a protected characteristic that we have no control over and we're not supposed to discriminate on? Isn't that also true of race? Isn't that also true of age? So if you're specifically attacking and targeting people on those bases, which you are not the good guys. You're betraying your own professed standards and principles in the fucking question. And there's this purity spiral thing that goes on. Like people say, oh yeah, if you've got one Nazi at a table with 10 other people, you have 11 Nazis. I think the OSR attitude is close to that of someone like Daryl Davis, a black musician who made it his job to sit down and break bread with Ku Klux Klan members and to win them over, and his effort worked. Whereas exclusion and victimization doesn't. Not that the viewpoints are anything like as diametrically opposed or violent against each other in our little corner of the gaming hobby, but you know, there is something which is empirically proven to work that people aren't doing, you know, and that's irritating. Has there been a rise in gatekeeping? Yeah, but I think only as a reaction, only commensurate to the amount of this bullshit going on. People want to be left alone. Right? And so they are maybe now a bit more actively excluding people who are going to stir the pot and cause trouble, and they're going to be more and more suspicious of people as this happens more and more. And this is more to do with people making life difficult for straight white older grognards rather than them making things difficult for anybody else. And so many of people's solutions to perceived or imagined problems in this space or any other space seems to be based around hypocritically victimizing people over their sexuality, race, and age. Yeah, and generally speaking, it's not the grogs who have a problem or are as unhappy as the people who are attacking them. And maybe that's part of the problem. Stop having fun. No. Imagination is a deeply personal game about depression and its effects. intended to help people with invisible illnesses to broach the subject and explore it in a way in which they can have power over it. Imagination is set after the fall of mainland Britain to a strange reality breakdown. The barriers between imagination and reality, dreams and nightmares, have shattered, and strange things dreamed up by people caught in the event teem across the land. Only those whose minds are already broken can hope to cope with exploring, understanding, and combating this strangeness for the sake of the huddled refugees that sit and wait and watch from the smaller islands around the coast. A game of mental illness and art using the description system as used in Neverwhere. This game is available free, so please promote, download, host and spread as far and wide as you can. Available at post-mort.com and DriveThruRPG.
Your nose is prohibited. Driver